For centuries, Japan had an emperor. Yet for much of its history, someone else held the real power. That someone was the shogun, the military ruler who stood at the center of Japan's warrior government. But the shogun did not simply command armies. The shogunate controlled land, taxation, military service, justice, and powerful regional lords. It was a political system built around relationships of loyalty and obligation. At the top stood the shogun. Below him stood powerful daimyo who governed large territories. Below the daimyo were smaller warriors, administrators, farmers, artisans, and merchants. Everyone had a place in a carefully organized society. So how did the shogunate actually work? Part 1. Emperor and Shogun. To understand the shogunate, we first need to understand the emperor. The emperor was the traditional sovereign and the source of political legitimacy. But beginning with the rise of warrior governments, political power increasingly moved away from Kyoto. The shogun ruled through military authority rather than replacing the emperor. This created a unique political arrangement that could last for centuries. The emperor remained essential to tradition, ceremony, and legitimacy. The shogun handled much of the practical machinery of military government. That division of authority could be complicated, but it was remarkably durable. Different shogunates adapted the system in different ways, but the central idea remained the same: warrior power governing beneath imperial legitimacy. Part 2. The daimyo. The shogun could not personally govern every village, road, and field in Japan. That responsibility fell largely to regional lords known as daimyo. A daimyo controlled land, castles, warriors, administrators, and agricultural production. Their wealth depended heavily on the productivity of the land. Rice was not simply food. It was a foundation of political power. A wealthy domain could support more warriors and maintain greater political influence. A weaker domain could struggle to maintain its army and government. That made land management a matter of survival. The shogunate therefore had to control the daimyo without destroying their usefulness. The Tokugawa would develop one of the most sophisticated systems for doing exactly that. Part 3. Controlling the daimyo. The Tokugawa solution was simple in principle. Keep the daimyo powerful enough to govern, but never powerful enough to threaten the shogun. One of the most important tools was called sankin kotai, or alternate attendance. Daimyo were required to spend alternating periods in Edo and in their own domains. Their families often remained in Edo, creating a powerful guarantee of loyalty. The system also forced the daimyo to spend enormous amounts of money on travel and maintaining residences. That made it much harder for regional lords to secretly build rival military powers. The shogunate also regulated castles. Daimyo could not simply construct or expand major fortifications without permission. Marriage alliances between powerful families could also require approval. Even personal relationships could become matters of state. Part 4. The samurai class. But the shogunate was not governed only by great lords. Below the daimyo stood a much larger class of samurai. Some were warriors, but many became administrators and government officials. They collected taxes, enforced laws, supervised estates, and maintained order. Their swords remained a visible symbol of their privileged position. Yet most samurai did not spend their lives fighting. The long peace of Tokugawa Japan slowly changed what it meant to be a warrior. Military skills remained important, but education and administration became increasingly valuable. This helped create a highly literate warrior bureaucracy. But beneath this peaceful structure was a strict social hierarchy. Part 5. Farmers, artisans, and merchants. Farmers were essential because they produced the rice that supported the entire system. Their harvests helped feed cities, armies, officials, and entire domains. Artisans produced everything from clothing and tools to weapons and household goods. And then there were merchants. Officially, merchants stood low in the social hierarchy because they were seen as producing nothing themselves. In reality, some merchants became extremely wealthy. Money could quietly create power even when official status remained low. This created one of the great contradictions of Tokugawa Japan. The people with the highest status were not always the richest, and the people officially considered lowest could become economically indispensable. Part 6. Law and Order. The shogunate also needed laws to keep this enormous system under control. Different rules governed warriors, farmers, artisans, merchants, temples, and noble families. The samurai themselves were expected to follow strict codes of conduct. Their duties included loyalty, obedience, military service, and proper behavior. For ordinary people, local officials handled much of everyday justice. Disputes over land, debt, taxes, theft, and family matters could all reach local authorities. The system was strict because stability mattered more than individual freedom. After centuries of civil war, peace itself became something worth protecting. The Tokugawa government understood that uncontrolled ambition could destroy everything, so it built a political system designed to prevent another age of war. Part 7. Religion and Control. Religion was another part of the shogunate's system of control. Temples and religious institutions were deeply connected to local communities. The government could use these institutions to monitor communities and maintain social order. At the same time, the shogunate became increasingly suspicious of foreign religious influence. Christianity especially was viewed as a potential political threat. The government eventually banned Christianity and persecuted those who refused to abandon it. This was part of a larger strategy to tightly regulate foreign contact. Japan was never completely cut off from the outside world, but international trade was carefully limited and supervised. The shogunate wanted foreign knowledge without surrendering political control. Part 8. The Price of Peace. For more than 2 centuries, this system achieved something remarkable: relative peace. Cities expanded, trade grew, and culture flourished. Edo became one of the largest cities in the world. But peace created problems for the warrior class that had been built for war. Many samurai lived on fixed stipends while prices and commercial wealth changed around them. Some borrowed money from the merchants they officially outranked. The social order looked stable from the outside, but economic pressure was building underneath. Then, Japan's isolation became increasingly difficult to maintain. Western powers possessed industrial technology and military forces unlike anything Japan had faced before. The system that had protected Japan for centuries was suddenly facing a challenge it could not ignore. In 1853, American warships under Commodore Matthew Perry arrived in Japanese waters, demanding that Japan open its ports. The shogunate was suddenly forced to confront a world that had changed, while Japan remained largely isolated. Opening Japan threatened the political order. Refusing could bring war. The shogunate eventually accepted unequal treaties, damaging its authority among powerful samurai and political opponents. Across Japan, opposition to the shogunate began to grow. After centuries of stability, the political system itself was beginning to collapse. In 1867, Tokugawa Yoshinobu returned political authority to the emperor. The following year, the Meiji Restoration transformed Japan and ended the shogunate. For nearly 7 centuries, warrior governments had shaped Japan's history. The shogunate was gone, but the world created by the samurai would forever remain part of Japan's story.